Rose Bowl. Next up, the third quarterfinal. This is the second one on New Year's Day. Ohio State and Oregon. This is a regular season rematch that we have going with these two teams. Ohio State 2.5-point favorites, 54 being the total in this game. So here's what I saw from Ohio State against Tennessee. I saw a team that played to the level of their talent. And we said from the beginning of the season, outside of Georgia, Texas, maybe a couple other teams, there's not many teams that had more overall talent, top to bottom, offense and defense than Ohio State. It was just a matter of can they finally play that way and play up to that level. And for one of the few times this year they did. I guess you could say they did offensively against Oregon in the first meeting because they did move the ball against Oregon in that 32-31 loss in Eugene back on October the 12th. But defensively, they did struggle. They gave up 500 yards to Oregon in that game. Will Howard played really well in that game, too. The problem is he made that mistake, forgot how much time was left on the clock, and didn't give his team a chance to try to kick the game-winning field goal at the end in the final seconds, and Oregon survived with a 32-31 win, a game that flew over the total, got into the 60s. What will we get here is the question. That's another over lean for me. Weather's not going to be an issue. Oregon, to me, offensively rocking and rolling right now. No question about that. A defensive-minded head coach in Dan Lanning who's going to have the time now to implement a game plan defensively, which certainly gives Oregon, a chance to be successful defensively. But I continue to look at Oregon's defense, and I have concerns, growing concerns, because I look at a schedule where you faced UCLA, Michigan State, Purdue, Illinois, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin. And yes, of course, you're going to build up some phenomenal defensive stats, phenomenal defensive numbers playing against that group of teams. But against Ohio State in the regular season, they gave up 31 points, almost 500 yards. Against Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, they gave up 37 points. Penn State racks up, over 500 yards of offense, 292 on the ground. I think that was startling to me, that Penn State was able to get Allen and Singleton going for 229 yards rushing combined to go with the 226 through the air from Drew Aller. So Oregon's defense statistically for the season looks great, but then you see all the weak offenses they've played, and the last two against Ohio State in the regular season and, of course, Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, and there's that defense kind of getting rolled and giving up big plays and giving up yards and, more importantly, giving up points. And that's certainly something that concerns me. I saw a lot of leaks starting to spring in that Oregon defense late in the year, and that does bother me. That being said, the other side of the ball, there is no issue. Gabriel's been incredible. James and Whittington running the ball. Tez Johnson leading them at the receiver spot. Weapons galore. An excellent offensive line. It's another game where I agree with the total going up. The question is going to be, the one thing that could hamper this total is Ohio State offense was phenomenal against Tennessee, and somehow with that banged-up offensive line, they made it work. And Tennessee was supposed to have an advantage with that defensive front, and somehow Ohio State made it work. But you know why it worked? It's because Will Howard got the ball out quickly. I give Chip Kelly credit. He learned from his mistakes against Michigan. We're not just going to try to run the football 3-4 yards into a cloud of dust. We're going to let Will Howard air it out and let this phenomenal freshman show his skills and talent in Jeremiah Smith. And that combo of Howard and Jeremiah Smith was phenomenal. They shredded that Tennessee team. I'm just hoping Chip stays on the gas pedal. That's how this team is going to win. Take advantage of what you got at receiver. Don't just be so conservative and just run all the time. Air it out. Chuck the football. Be balanced. Give Will Howard a chance to make those throws downfield to Jeremiah Smith, who is good enough to catch those 50-50 balls, as we've seen all season long. If they stay with that aggressive offensive game plan that worked against Tennessee, I think this game probably does go over because I see Ohio State scoring if that's the case. Oregon's defense in the best offenses they've played did not do as well. But on the flip side, Ohio State's defense, as dominant as they were against Tennessee, that Oregon offense is pretty special when they've got it going. And Ohio State didn't have a ton of answers for Oregon's offense in the first meeting, giving up 32 points in that game. So the over is in play, in my opinion. I got to admit, though, from a side perspective, Now, if we get the Michigan game of Ohio State, Oregon's winning 100%, not even a question. But as long as this doesn't touch 3, I get the feeling Ohio State might avenge that loss and win. Because at the moment, if you ask me, with 2 teams I think can move the ball here, which team defensively could be more capable of getting that stop? Believe it or not, I might say Ohio State right now, because that Oregon defense, I'm telling you, what I saw against Penn State really alarmed me. Like, Penn State went up and down the field against them, and then Ohio State did in the first meeting. And if Will Howard remembers, he's got to get down and preserve a chance at a field goal. They might have won in Eugene earlier this season in October. So I think I'm going to side with the Buckeyes here. Maybe this is not the right time, because they heard from everyone how bad they were and how awful that loss was against Michigan, and Ryan Day's on the hot seat, and they certainly rallied the troops, and they had that team meeting that Ryan Day talked about after the Tennessee win, and they got everyone on the same page. Like, we're not going out like that. We got to show we're better than that. Now everyone's going to pump them up now, CMAC, until January 1st, say how great they are. And now maybe we get the old Ohio State where, again, they shit the bed here in this big spot. Now everyone's going to be pumping their tires again. But I am telling you right now, if Ohio State plays up to the level of the talent on this roster, I think they're going to beat Oregon. That's where I'm at with this game. CMAC, what do you think here? Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I know. This is just how it is. They got in 2 losses. Oregon's, undefeated. And here's the rematch. They lose, they're gone. I think this is a good game. You know what I have to say? Let's talk about the total event. It's too low. This goes up. Just too much speed, too many athletes. As good as the defense have been, Ohio State a little bit better. And Oregon kind of did what it showed. When it played Penn State, Oregon, they got, gashed a little bit. And when you go back to that game, I mean, Oregon had almost 500 yards just about of offense. Ohio State had 470. It's just when they play Wisconsin, all these teams like you mentioned, they look pretty good. And I was impressed. It's been one of the better Oregon defenses, because I just think in years past they could give a ton of points. And in these matchups they have, even when they played Ohio State the last 4 or 5 years, these games were higher and they've gone over. I just think it's too light with all the speed that's on both sides of the football. Ohio State needs to do what they can. The offensive line kind of is what it is, but I think they'll have success. And you're right. They got to throw it with Howard. Don't make him stationary, get him out, moving the ball. You know what I mean? Like some bootlegs, get him and move in and throw some deep balls, because I think they can have plenty of success here. And Oregon with Gabriel, I think he keeps them in this football game. Whether they can win or not, I think this is just kind of where this line is. It's a coin flip. The rematches have not been great, to teams at all. So this should be good. I think you just take the over here. I think both teams, I don't trust the defenses, especially after seeing the Penn State game. And they've seen each other. You could go off that. But still, I think the success will just be too much. James, in that game, too, Howard had 326. Now, if I had someone to have the ball at the end, though, I'd rather have Gabriel. I still don't trust Howard.
Yeah,
I mean, good game, but they played it. Come on, they played it fucking home. Freezing cold against a Tennessee team that couldn't throw the goddamn
ball. The weather
ball.
wasn't great that night either in Eugene in October, and they still got into the 60s, and it was just back and forth type of game. So you're right. I thought where this total is 54, it felt light. Yep.
Yeah, I think it is too light. I think the defenses are getting too much love. To talk about in these big games, you get 2 teams like this, it just seems to go over. Like they just do. I try to find an argument for an under sometimes, because I've kind of rolled with a lot of these overs in these big bowl games or national championships, and they seem to get there, and I think this one does here.